If you live in Central Florida, you know Apopka. If you don't, then you should get to know her. She's a great Southern lady full of hospitality and history. Many would say that Apopka is a sleepy town with nothing to do. The truth is, Apopka is peaceful. It's far enough away from the house of mouse that you don't have the flash and styrofoam surrealness, which for me is nice. No offense to you thrill-seeking visitors, we who live here not only can't afford tourist traps, we avoid them. Universal, Disney, SeaWorld will welcome you with all the pre-packaged thrills you're looking for. Me personally, I avoid those areas like the plague. The traffic and expense aren't for me. Tourists though, bless you, you're a lot. Don't get me wrong, we love you for, coming and spending money, but we also like it when we aren't hanging out with you. This isn't the part of Florida that tourists explore. This is a great reason to love Apopka and explore it myself. It's my backyard. The past meets me here, and here we are in Apopka's Edgewood-Greenwood Cemetery to meet up with the past and meet the pioneers that built it. Before there were churches or even cemeteries, there were people who belonged here. They belonged to this land. The first known inhabitants of Apopka area were the Acuera people and native indigenous people. If I pronounced that wrong, I'm sorry, I tried. I obviously can barely speak English, so, I did my best. Anyway, like I was saying, they were part of the larger Timucua Confederation. They lived along these waters of the Apopka Lake for centuries, but by around 1730, their villages were gone. Their people likely decimated by disease carried by European contact. Later, as European pressure and violence spread throughout the South, refugees from Alabama and Georgia gathered here and became the people we know today as the Seminole tribe. They carried the memory of the land with them, and they gave it the name Ahapopka, from the Acuera word meaning potato-eating place. It was a place of sustenance, a place where the lake and the soil gave life. A Seminole village remained here on Lake Apopka until the mid-1830s, when the Second Seminole War broke out, and even this place of refuge was taken from them. And just like that, the people who had named this land and drawn life from it were pushed away, as if they didn't matter, leaving behind little more than the echo of the word Apopka. With that piece of layered history, we come to one of Apopka's earliest pioneer cemeteries, where the stories of those who arrived later are carved in stone. This is the Old Church Cemetery, also called Apopka Church Cemetery, or sometimes just the Church Cemetery. When I first met this cemetery, it was completely gated in. You could not go in there without an appointment. Now it's open to the public, and it sits alongside the original Greenwood Cemetery, the OG City Cemetery plots. Further along this series, we'll explore more, but for now, this is it. This is where the modern city began. In the wake of war, new settlers began to arrive. At this time, this region wasn't even called Orange County. It was still part of what was known as Mosquito County, a vast stretch of Central Florida that saw its boundaries and its people reshaped by conflict. Out of that upheaval, small settlements took root. Surveyors marked this area as Sector 10, calling it the center of the community. For the early families, though, it wasn't a number on a map. It was simply the heart of Apopka. There may or may not have been a marker standing here, but today, I can't see it. The cemetery itself is a reminder of where those first roots of the town were laid. The first marked grave in this churchyard is from 1858, a 9-year-old boy named Erastus L. Stewart, the son of Matthew and Cinderella Stewart. He was buried here before the church even existed on the grounds. His beautifully white carved stone marks the beginning of 140 years of burials. Many others remain unmarked, or their markers have weathered away. Headstones also reveal the struggles of the time. Literacy wasn't guaranteed. Families, stonecutters, and census takers often misspelled different names. One name, one family, is the Raulersons. And them putting in the different spellings that took place. All of those spellings can be seen on the historic stone, all on different stones, all the same family. Today, the descendants in Apopka still proudly claim the name Raulerson. In 1860, a Baptist church formed here, with Reverend George Calder Powell as pastor. His wife was Patience Caroline Powell. Their son, Lewis Thornton Powell, would later go down in infamy, also known as Payne, and he was hanged as a conspirator in the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. Lewis Thornton Powell was the man who stormed into Secretary of State William Seward's bedroom with a knife. It's hard to imagine, from a quiet Florida preacher's family to one of the darkest nights of American history, this person existed. The early congregation struggled. Meetings often moved into homes, schooled, or even borrowed buildings. But by the 1880, the church was restarted with support from the Baptist Convention. Reverend Sam Gove briefly served, followed by Reverend J.F.B. Mays from Nashville, and he worked for just $231 a year before passing in 1883 and being laid to rest here. In 1881, Zealots and Christina Mason sold their land to the church for just $25. 2 years later, in 1883, the congregation finally finished their permanent church building. The committee behind the development of the church included names that are still etched in headstones nearby: Lovell, Dorset, Stewart, McConnell, and Dunaway. They're all here. Pastors came and went, some staying only months, others leaving lasting marks. Reverend Lucian Drury, who also taught at the nearby school, Reverend Walter Jolly, Robert Lovell, J.C. Porter, Lorenzo Dow Geiger, they all helped purchase the Florida Baptist Witness newspaper in 1904. Through all the changes, the church survived, proof of a town refusing to fade. The grounds weren't just for the Baptists. The Apopka School was nearby, and Methodists and Presbyterians borrowed buildings when they needed them. This patch of land became a true crossroads of early Apopka life. As you walk through the old church cemetery, something stands out to me. The number of graves marked CSA, Confederate States Army. There's a big handful of them here, some original, some placed by historians in the DOC, the Daughters of the Confederacy. Their existence isn't surprising for the South. It would be stranger if there weren't any CSA graves in a historic cemetery. What did surprise me was that there are CSA soldiers this far south. It caused me to deep dive further into history, because when I think of the Civil War, I don't think of Florida, and outside of Jacksonville or the Olustee battlefield. But obviously, they did come from as far south as Apopka, maybe even further. And that's something for me to read up on later. What you won't see at all in this cemetery is Union graves. If they're here, they weren't marked or celebrated in the same way. But there is one name that complicates the picture: William S. Delk. He's laid to rest here, and he was a complicated, very complicated man. A slaveholder and a plantation-running unionist who eventually set his slaves free and left. His story doesn't neatly fit into the North or the South, hero or a villain. Not for now, anyway. I'll leave it to that, but stay tuned because there's a lot more to unpack with this man, and I'll have a short and a longer deep dive into his tangled family life coming soon. Florida often gets painted as a punchline. Tourist infested, a cash grab, a state where you only know them for their theme parks or their Florida Man headlines. But places like Apopka show another side. It's quiet, it's rooted, it's carrying history that hasn't been paved over, and here in the old church cemetery, the past still speaks, if you can slow down just long enough to listen. The old church was the beginning, but it isn't the only burial ground in Apopka. Like so many southern towns, even in death, people were divided. Cemeteries were set apart by race and community, and in time those divisions shifted, and the city of Apopka merged them under one canopy of trees. But that's a story for another day. Here at the old church, this is where the story first took root as written history. I'm personally looking forward to looking more into Apopka and finding out more about the people and the places and just everything about it that I can. And I hope that you come along with me as I look into the deeper meaning of everywhere I can find in Apopka. That's about it. I will probably post just like a full walkthrough with just music for this whole area sometime later, but for right now, yeah, that's it. If you like this content, press like. If you want to subscribe, press subscribe. And until then, wander often, wonder always, and stay safe on those back roads.